Pardon me. Maybe. Oof. Spoilers. Spoilers. Excuse you? That was not what I was asking you to do. I was asking you to go over here. Yes. Okay, I check my volume. Okay. We're here. Hey, we good. And excuse me, YouTube TV. That's not what I desired. Share. My hand is shaking. Yeah, shake. Hang on. I'm still here. Yeah. Installment of Clockwork Chronicles. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh no, my hands are shaking again. Do not fall asleep. Thank you. Alright, how's everybody doing? We've done a thing. We've done a thing. Hi, Tree. You know I see you. Hey, we're 2 minutes in and we're ready to go. Yeah, basically this is the next installment of A Terrible Price. Like the next part of what we're going through, as you can see in the note. Like, this is a continuation of Season Clockwork, Hermit, Outcry, Redstone Infestation, The Lost Hermit, and A Terrible Price. A spin-off series to my Clockwork Chronicles world based on Hermitcraft. But, yeah. I wouldn't say it's part of the Gigaverse. Probably it's not. I would not say that because, like, this whole thing is like its own universe. And it's totally different from what Red's doing. So, definitely not canon to anything related to the series. Just me having some fun creating a story for your enjoyment. And of course, the first part is Impulse. And when I first read this, it was about 2 hours of reading time. This one's probably one of the longer ones, so we'll see how far we go. If we get through it, we get through it. If we don't, we just do it another time. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. Hey, Space Score. How you doing, man? Hey. Oof. Yeah. I will be reading and looking every now and then, but of course, the computer just happens to be on the side where I can't see, which means I can't tell right away when the thing goes. When I start reading, it just happens. Yeah, I'm doing great, Tree. How are you doing? Everybody just having a good day, having a good morning, afternoon, evening. I usually do these early. I've got no exams today, so I thought I might as well do it today. And I can do it again on Thursday. Maybe, if we have time. No exams today, but I've got exams Tuesday and Wednesday. And by the time I'm done with my exam on Wednesday, we'll be dropping into the 800th episode of Lovely World. Not Hermitcraft. Lovely World. Yeah. And then, yeah, people might want me to do a breakdown of that one. Stabby said it was going to be a weird one, so I might have to do a breakdown on that one. That would be fun. Yeah, I haven't done those in a little while. Those used to do well. Don't do as well anymore. Maybe I hope because it was like a premiere when he did the other time. People were seeing it as well as Zappy's video, so they were clicking on it to see. So better. Because I did the thumbnail breakdown. Cracking down on the thumbnail. Yeah, Zappy's thumbnails are amazing. You know that? They're amazing. Full of tiny little secrets, especially at the Target stuff. Yeah. We should probably get started. Chapter 1. Impulse picked up a small object in between his fingers, holding it up to the sunlight that poured into the second story room. That was a temporary workshop. The small gadget was rectangular, with a few tiny lines trailing down like visible cracks. A tiny motherboard of circuits, barely visible by a sheet of green-stained glass. The sun glinted off the small machine as he checked it over, making sure he didn't miss anything crucial. "I think I have something," he reported to the other person in the room, Tango, one of his many friends and fellow hermits who lived in this world they called home. He had invited Tango to come over so that they could finish working on a project they spent weeks on after he found out what his friend was doing. "Let's hope it's better than the last prototype," Tango teased with a chuckle. Pushing aside the leftover scraps on the table, he revealed another object as he gently slid it across the table. It was a black headband, folded flat on the wooden surface. It looked a little rusty and worse for wear, with a few cables sticking out of it, of where his friend had taken it apart and put it back together to study its components more. At least Blake's design was more reliable than this. Impulse laughed. Well, he could only short-circuit this little thing, not completely turn it off. He lifted the headband in his other hand, looking down at it for a moment. It seemed harmless as he lifted it on his palm. He brought the tiny chip closer to the disabled headband. The chip clicked into place as the hermit looked back up at his friend, meeting Tango's ruby-red eyes, waiting. He held the headband in his hand for a long moment. He shook his head slowly. You don't have to be the one to test that," Tango offered. "There's a ton of other hermits, or even cause members, who would be more than willing to help us out." Impulse didn't say anything as he stared at the machine quietly. "I know you have bad memories relating to that, and I don't want to." "No, I know," Impulse said quickly, looking back up at his friend. "It's okay. I'm okay. It's just, I still can't believe this is actually happening." Yeah, Tango nodded slowly as he rounded the table and crossed the room to walk over to his friend. "The fact that we're so close and all of it's potentially just be all for nothing is just wild." "Maybe it's not. You never know," Impulse shrugged, smiling over at his friend. "We don't know what Grumpbot was able to delete. They had this kind of technology before they connected it to the limitator to him. This sort of tech is new to that. So you think Mr. A might have some of those just lying around for no reason?" Tango raised an eyebrow curiously. "It works, so I don't see why not." The hermit chuckled nervously. "And if what Scar said has any truth, then we're going to need all the help we can get." "Do you think Mr. A will try to get his brother and Gerald out of prison?" Tango pressed. taking the headband from his friend's hand as he put it back on the table. Impulse kept his eyes on the little gadget that had caused him so much pain. He could see RJ looming over him, see the faint echoes of fire, screams, pain he'd endured, many of those memories not even his own. He turned away, finally, when Tango called him by name, bringing him back to reality. It's possible, Impulse admitted quietly. At least, Mumbo seemed to agree that it was a good thing to prepare for, just in case. I suppose so, Tango sighed as he looked over toward the window. Mumbo had returned home the day before with his protector to prepare his base a bit more and make it more secure. He'd also said he'd help improve other bases eventually as well, once he found something strong enough to prepare the hermits for whatever Mr. A might throw next. With the eliminator gone and the redstone virus wiped out, the two main projects that Impulse was aware of, he wasn't sure what else the man would go. Where else the man would go. Finding and releasing his brother was the most logical option, as RJ was the smart one, and often created experimental technologies that Mr. A would later use on YouTubers. Impulse shuddered at that thought as Tango added, "You sure you want to test this thing out for me? You do know how it works the best, seeing as those guys have used it on you at least 3 times. Impulse chuckled nervously. I did tell Green how to do it, and Pearl technically knows how to. Technically? Tango raised an eyebrow. She gave me the idea. Impulse looked down at his feet sheepishly. It took some time, but eventually I got the hang of it. That's what I mean, Tango insisted. You're the best at this kind of thing. You know I'm not going to intentionally hurt you. Mm-hmm, Impulse replied, looking back up at his friend. Tango sighed as he went over to the window. Yeah, I know. It worked well last time, Tango said sarcastically. But for one, it wasn't a technology I had control over. It was a living human being. Never want to do something like that again. Impulse chuckled. He crossed the room to stand next to his friend. Yeah, you didn't intentionally mean to hurt B-dubs. I encouraged him not to. It was hurting him, Tango pressed. He ignored his limits, and it could have costed far more than it did. He paused for a moment, turned to meet his friend's eyes. Yet I know marginally the limit of that headband. I'm not going to do more than what you can handle right now. I just need to see if it works. Yeah, it's a start, Impulse agreed nervously. But it's not an easy thing to ask someone, you know. It's not, Tango replied matter-of-factly. I could gladly do it, but you do have the skills to help save more lives. You know how to beat this thing, even without the chip. I never said I wouldn't. Impulse smiled as he put on his hand on the windowsill, feeling the sunlight with warmth on it. I'm just not sure if I can do it. I know you can, but I don't want to push you. Tango offered as he went over to the headband, picking it up again as he held it out to his friend. I've worked on this thing for over a month now at this point. I never thought it would get this far. I want that to mean something. I want this to be able to help more people. People like us. Impulse nodded, taking the gadget from his friend's hand, as he looked down at it, its glassy thick shape resting limply, harmlessly in his hand. I want to help people too. I know, it's why you made those communicators, the portable ones, Tango insisted. It's why you made the invisibility detectors, and why we made the alarm systems. We did it to help our friends, and essentially help other people as well. We've already saved lives, Impulse. We've helped foil Mr. A's plans time and time again. Why stop now when we've come this far? When nothing is holding us back from what we're capable of? I guess you're right, Impulse replied as he glanced over to the controller resting on the table, not far from where the headband had been, as it had been working. Blake's voltage redirector was also lying next to the control panel, as well, dismantled as wires spewed about. This isn't going to feel pleasant. I'll be right there with you. You got this, Tango reassured him as he scooped up the controller from the table. Just tell me when to stop, and I will. Promise. What if this thing malfunctions? Impulse asked after that thing could kill me. Let's just hope that doesn't happen then. Dango replied mischievously, grinning from ear to ear as Impulse put on the headband, wondering just how much his friend was going to enjoy this, as he heard the familiar click. Impulse took a deep breath as he pulled his shoulders back, waiting for his friend's cue. He was ready. Yeah. Chapter 2. Impulse unclipped the headband from his forehead, setting it aside to rub his temples a little bit, as the images started to fade slowly. There hadn't been any pain, no, but that didn't mean much. Are you okay? Tango asked now, sounding more nervous in tone. Yeah, I'm good, Impulse replied. Happens every time. Just need to reassure my brain that I'm not in danger or anything, you know? Right, Tango laughed as he put the controller down. I was so nervous that it gave you a headache after that. A headache is far better than the pain that thing could do, honestly. Impulse rolled his eyes as he walked over to the door. It wasn't so bad. See, I told you I'd be fine, Tango said brightly, his smile returning. Of course, I'd want to test the other features, but I'd do it to someone that isn't my friend. Agreed. Impulse chuckled with a smile as he opened the door, spotting Tyler standing outside the door. He greeted him politely as he looked back at his friend. So you'll be going home soon? In probably half an hour, yeah? Tango shrugged. I've got a thing I need to do Zed tomorrow. He's almost done with something pretty cool, actually. That's great, Impulse said with a grin before hesitating. Do you know if Mr. A has anyone watching you two by any chance? No, not that I'm aware of, Tango replied simply. Tyler nodding in confirmation. Should that be a concern? No, just curious, Impulse shrugged. Just be sure to keep an eye out. You know Mr. A could do anything at this point. Just to hurt us, and I don't want anyone to get hurt in the crossfire. Clearly. Willie? Willie? You decide to one-on-one and chase each other now? That's fine. I get it. Tango nodded, walking over to his friend. Zed's going to be okay, though. He's far more prepared than you realize. Impulse tilted his head curiously at his friend as Tango walked back into the room, gathering up all the material from off the table. You know, you could leave that there, and I could see if there's anything I could improve on, Impulse offered. For tomorrow, at least. I definitely did notice a few hiccups I think I know how to patch up. Tango paused before nodding, stopping what he was doing as he put the redstone box on the table, taking a few things out before storing away. It should be good, right? I think so, Impulse replied, glancing over to the window as he saw the sun beginning to set. I should check and see how Scar and G are doing. I haven't seen them much all day. Don't let me stop you then, Tango replied with a wave. Have a good night. Feel free to check in on me during the call-ins if you want. I will. I will. Impulse nodded before looking over at Tango. At Tyler, I mean. Sorry, apologies. It should be happening soon, actually. Yep. Tyler nodded as he looked down at the hallway. I think Scar and Green went downstairs for a bit. I caught them going down about an hour ago. Thanks! Impulse ran down the hall, wishing his friend well as he arrived at the stairs, pausing for a moment as he looked down to the main room. Not hearing anything at first. Hello? He could hear a muffled voice from below him as he climbed down the stairs, just as a secret door opened from under the stairs as a head peeked out. You're just the guy we were hoping to see. I am? Impulse asked, surprised, but perplexed by the hermit's statement. But of course, Scar stepped out of the room. With a flare, he lifted his hands to his friend. Scar, Green's voice pressed from inside the room as something clattered to the floor. We need a little help with something Green wanted to work on, Scar said quickly, getting to the point as he crossed the hall. He wrapped an arm around Impulse's shoulders as he guided him towards the secret room under the stairs. I wouldn't call it little, Green muttered aloud as Impulse got the chance to peek into the room, seeing the few communicators scattered around the floor. Doesn't look like much, does it? What are you trying to do? Impulse asked, curiously, as he knelt next to his friend, looking down at the communicators on the floor. I was just wondering if it might be possible to get these machines to do certain sounds, let's say. If you know what I'm referencing, you know what I'm referencing. Like a way to deter or extremely annoy an intruder with a noise machine, but instead of doors, trapdoors, bells, it could be these. To be fair, that might be more feasible with one of my older versions, Impulse said slowly, picking up one of the communicators as he fiddled with it for a little bit. But if you tweak a few settings here, it is a secret little code that helps detect an issue. I think you could use that if I give you the ability to customize it. Green's eyes gleamed with inspiration, growing wide as he looked at the machine in the other hermit's hand and back up to the ones on the floor. Show me how? Sure, Impulse said, happily, as he scooted closer, showing his friend how to access certain settings of the communicator. Scar observed from just outside the room, with a delighted smile on his face. After a few moments of this, Green snatched the communicator from his friend's hand and leaped to his feet. This honestly could make for a great. This honestly could make for great prank material. Green said quickly. I mean, it's good work. Thanks, Impulse. The hermit laughed. No problem. It's good you already found a way to repurpose them. I never would have thought of doing that. It's so cool and clever. Just what this little thing can do. Green admitted as he shook his head. Though I don't understand how any of it works. It's not too complicated, I'm sure, Impulse pointed out, seeing as Mr. A's men were able to mimic a similar design easily enough. They copied from the best, Scar stated eagerly, as Impulse chuckled, looking over to his friend as he too got to his feet. How are you feeling, Green? Impulse asked calmly. Better than I was earlier, honestly. Green sighed, shaking his head. He didn't meet the hermit's eyes as he added, I miss him. We all do, believe me, Impulse said gently, putting a hand on his friend's shoulder. Grandpa did what he felt was best, for all of us. So sacrifice? Green asked. Were the odds really that much against us? I don't know. Impulse shook his head. Green wiped a stray tear from his eye as he began to pick up the communicators, pocketing them away for safekeeping. Think he'd be happy to know that you both made it out okay. Yeah, Green agreed quietly as Scar walked in the room as well. You have to remember he did try to buy me time. Dango, Scar reminded him. I've been able to call for you if he hadn't. Green nodded again as Scar wrapped him into a side hug, pulling him close. Out of everything that could have happened, what more could come of this? Especially if Gerald or RJ managed to escape. They wouldn't need something like Robot when they could create their own. They still have the blueprints, so what's stopping them? Maybe there's more to Robot than a pile of redstone and repeaters and comparators, Impulse suggested. Something only Mumbo knows. Maybe, Green nodded. So they wouldn't be able to try and copy him? Why do you think they tried to steal him in the first place? Impulse smiled. They probably tried. It failed. They didn't understand how it worked. That's what makes Mumbo's style so unique. Green sighed. Maybe you have a point. It wouldn't be the same even if we rebuilt him. What they probably had was a hollow version and only wanted to make Mumbo mayor, which is what they wouldn't want. Scar laughed. I'd love to see how that would have gone down. I managed to get the hermit to smile as he pulled away from his friend, stifling a yawn. I think we should call it a night. It's been a long day. Yeah, it has, Impulse agreed. Dango and I just finished another prototype of that thing he's been working on. Scar's eyes lit up when Impulse said this, as he asked, did it go well? The test overall worked great, though not perfectly, Impulse said thoughtfully. I'll probably fix up a few things tomorrow morning before I head out. It's safer that way, to keep it low after everything. Definitely. Green went over to his door, glancing over his shoulder as he added, can't have everyone in one basket. Makes too much of a target. It's also not good to be entirely alone either, Impulse said. I've got lots of company, Sky said boldly, looking up at his friend. We should share some if you'd like, Green. He chuckled. I'm good. Thanks for the offer. Gem, Pearl, and their escorts probably should be back in a day or two, Impulse said thoughtfully, noting that they'd all gone off to check on Jem and Pearl's friends in another world. Not that anything bad had happened, just a physical check-in. He didn't mind, seeing that it had been a little while since the girls had seen their friends. He knew they'd be safe, and there was no reason to be worried. I wish I could do that again, Green admitted with a sad smile. As much as I miss my friends back in Spruce Village, Nettie, Barton, Jimmy. I could have said Timmy. Timmy! You know? I just feel like people wouldn't understand unless you knew who Green was, and most people that see this probably don't know who Green is. So saying Timmy would probably confuse them, so that's why I say Jimmy. But like, you can imagine him saying Timmy, if that's what you want to do. It's just not safe right now. They're planning on moving the village elsewhere, because so many people, both cause members and mysterious men, have given them a visit. Not necessarily friendly ones either. Steffi, I'm guessing? Scar asked, tilting his head curiously. Yeah, there's a lot of rumors going around that he had something to do with Gerald's capture, saying he's trying to keep him quiet for telling the truth. Green chuckled nervously. We all know that's not true. Yeah, Scar laughed. He wasn't even here when it happened. Why would people think that? Green shrugged. Oh, rumors are just that, rumors. Unfortunately, that means my friends are moving, and I don't have any idea where they're going. They can't tell you? Impulse asked curiously. Hermit shook his head. They're not allowed to. Safety protocol. I'm going to miss them, but at least I know they'll be safe. They do have a way to call you if they need any help, at least Scar pointed out. It's only for extreme emergencies, Green corrected, in case something really bad happens. It's only happened once, and I don't want it to happen again. I don't blame you, Impulse agreed. As his friend entered the hallway, the other two hermits followed him. Impulse could see a figure standing in the main room, quietly looking out the window. It's not fun having a call saying someone needs your help. Green nodded slowly as he went over to the staircase, spotting a figure in the main room. It gave them away. Calling it a night then? Katie asked brightly, as he turned to see the three hermits in the hallway. Yeah, it's after dark, so we can't really be out there right now. So we'll probably hang out for a bit, Green said brightly, taking a step onto the staircase. Do you know when Jim and Pearl are coming home? Sometime tomorrow, I've been told. Katie mused his mouth. I was told when exactly, but I was told to be prepared. Thanks. Green ran up the stairs as Impulse looked up, seeing Scar going up after him, not too far behind from his friend. Did everything go well up there? Kaden asked. I saw Tango leave a few minutes ago. Yeah, we got some work done, Impulse said with a casual shrug. Another prototype is complete. That's good, Kaden nodded as he covered the window again with the blinds. It's good to see you guys working hard on stuff. Never hurts to be prepared, Impulse admitted sheepishly, with a smile, as he grabbed onto the railing. I've got a few call-ins I need to do before bed anyway. Let me know if anything comes up. Kaden replied firmly. And I mean anything. Yes, sir. Impulse nodded. I'll let you know, or someone know, if there's anything out of the ordinary. Good. The man nodded, appearing satisfied as Impulse climbed up the stairs, making it to the top to find himself alone. Scar and Green had probably gone into their rooms. He walked down the hallway, looking both ways. Some doors were closed, some were locked, and only a few were wide open. The area had gone quiet. He couldn't even hear the sound of his friends whispering through their door as he approached it. He put an ear to the door for a moment before opening it, peeking in and he saw Scar pulling the covers of Green's bed up to his chin, tucking him in quietly. And Jelly curled up in a ball at the foot of the bed, fast asleep. It's been a long day for everyone then, I suppose. Impulse said quietly as Scar jumped, looking up at the hermit. Startled to see him, he smiled. Yeah, you didn't have a great night. Sleep last night. Scar died, shaking his head. He had some pretty bad nightmares. Did he say what they were? Impulse asked curiously. Scar shrugged. I just know he woke me up early in the morning because he couldn't sleep and wanted to talk to someone. Oh. Impulse smiled. Hopefully tonight is better. Yeah. Scar nodded. She scratched Jelly behind her ear. I'm letting Jelly sleep with him tonight to see if it helps. Good idea. Impulse nodded, looking out into the room as he saw the blinds blocking out the head of moonlight trying to pour into the room. Have you made any call-ins yet? No, but I'm going to call them both for Korean tonight. Scar replied with a chuckle as he went over to the bed, taking out the communicator. I'll get to my own then, Impulse said calmly. I promised I'd check on Tango before bed, and I also need to check on the kids today. It is my night to do this time. Hopefully all goes well, Scar replied, smiled brightly. Good night, Impulse. Good night, Impulse replied as he closed the door behind him, leaving it open a crack, just as he heard footsteps climbing up the stairs. 2 pairs of footsteps, actually. Impulse looked back to see Blake and Caleb walking down the hallway, both talking quietly amongst themselves until they saw that he was watching them. Caden's taking first watch tonight, Caleb said simply, as he gestured for one of the bedrooms that were next to Scar and Grian's rooms. We won't be far if you need anything. I know, Impulse said cheerfully, as he crossed the hall to the other room, which he called his own for the past couple of weeks, or however long it'd been off and on staying here. Just need to make a couple of calls, and then I'll be good for tonight. I'll see you in the morning, Blake said with a nod, after you finish up whatever you're working on. It's not much more. I can easily be done at home, too, Impulse replied with a shrug. Just wanted to save Tango a trip, you know. Of course. Blake smiled. Impulse opened the door as he stepped into his room. Good night. Good night, Impulse repeated, glancing at the both of them as he slipped into his room, closing the door behind him. He made sure to leave it open, just a crack, as he pulled out his communicator and pressed a few buttons before sending a signal, not having to guess to know it'd be a good report. After all, nothing much had happened since the others had returned from trying to rescue Grubbot from Mr. A's clutches. 2 weeks since Green had spent time recovering from what the Eliminator had done to him. All that was behind them. As he finished his calls and crawled into bed, feeling that tomorrow would be a good day, as his eyes grew heavy, falling asleep amongst the soft blankets and fluffy pillow cushioning his head. Oh. Chapter 3. And the water bottle's over there. Get it. There we go. Not it yet. Yeah. How's everybody doing? Yeah, it's just me now. Let's keep reading. I know. Impulse carefully put away the headband and controller inside his redstone sugar box, keeping the chip on the headband as he put it away for safekeeping. He'd finished what he needed to do to patch up a few bugs he'd found on the chip. Everything was working properly. He just had to drop it off at Tango's place so he could do what he needed to do with it, whether testing it on a mob or something else. He shook his head as he opened the workshop door as voices greeted him. The voices were coming from downstairs. A smile appeared on his face. He quickened his pace as they arrived at the railing that led down to the main area below, seeing that, sure enough, Jem and Pearl had made it home. Impulse! Pearl's eyes widened as she saw him, as he quickly climbed down the stairs. Everything went well while we were gone? Yep. Impulse nodded as he met up with them, getting tackled into a hug by Jem before Pearl joined in. Nothing unusual had been happening here, though it has been a while since I went back to my base. So you're leaving? Jem asked with a hint of sadness. It won't be far, Impulse chuckled. It's just safer to go back home for a bit, while we wait for Mr. A to make his move. I know, Jem nodded with a sad smile. You'll come to visit, though? Yeah, we can make some plans over some soup, Pearl stated happily, as Impulse laughed. Of course, he nodded as he turned to Blake, already in the main room. He'd probably been keeping watch and waiting for him. I'll give you a call tonight if that's okay. Yes, you do that, Jem agreed before looking up to the stairs. Are Gray and Scar still upstairs? From what I recall, yeah. Yes, Blake confirmed as he crossed the room and met to meet up with the girls. Caleb's up there with them, so they should be okay. Good, Jem replied. They're both doing better? Yeah, they've been up to their own old shenanigans again, Impulse mused. as he nudged her playfully. He's doing very well. What are they up to? Pearl asked curiously. Impulse shrugged. Something game-changing. You can use it to deter any intruders if it works. We can replicate that. Something tells me it's not just for intruders. Pearl chuckled. Impulse only smiled as he watched the two girls run up the stairs. It had only been like a week since they were gone, but no doubt that they were happy to be home. To be home and not have to deal with an immediate emergency, as he took out his wings and pulled them over his shoulders, securing them tightly as he glanced back. Blake had done the same. I need to drop the redstone off at Daniel's place first, if that's okay with you. Impulse replied simply. No problem. Blake nodded as the two of them stepped out into the cool morning air, the sun already starting to climb higher. The blue sky was clear of any clouds as the hermit pulled out his rockets, launching himself into the air as the wind whistled past his ears. It only took a few minutes until the two of them arrived at Tango's base, which was quiet. It appeared empty as the hermit approached the front door, inputting a code as he heard a mechanism click as he smiled. I set it to automatically turn back on in 30 minutes, he informed Blake as he fiddled with it, opening the door as he went up the stairs. He found Tango's workshop and dropped off the box, as it was his spare redstone box. He'd probably be here tomorrow to help Tango with it if there was need for it. He ran back down the stairs after a minute or two later, seeing Blake standing outside the door, patiently. Impulse closed the door behind him and turned on the mechanism again, as the alarm systems were turned back on. That's pretty cool stuff, Blake mused with a smile. Yeah, he's been working on some upgrades. Impulse shrugged. He told me the code in case I needed to drop anything off at any time. We should probably be getting home then, Blake replied as he glanced out into the tree light. Hermit followed his gaze, not seeing anything. Do you think anyone would be here? Impulse asked him cautiously. I doubt it. The base is empty at the moment. There's nothing to watch. Apart from leaving and going, Impulse shrugged. It's good information, no. Right, Blake frowned, shrugging as he pulled out his rockets again. I'm sure you have things you need to do at back home. Yeah, Impulse agreed, as he followed his escort to the sky, glancing back to Tango's base for a moment. Nothing seemed out of place. Everything was calm and peaceful. No sign of mysterious men anywhere. They probably wouldn't be here anyway. It didn't take very long before he saw his base ahead. He couldn't help but smile as he saw it. Home. It had been a little while since he had seen this place. It looked great. Everything was spotless, with no cracks, holes, or smashed windows. He landed gracefully to the earth, looking up at his front door. He walked over to it, quietly opened it, hearing it creak against the motion. The other side was dark. Nothing appeared to have been moved, as far as he was concerned. I'm going to scout around for a bit, Blake told his charge as Impulse looked back, seeing him walk away toward the tree line as the hermit stepped into his house, flipping a nearby lever as the lights flickered on. He stepped into the main room, hearing the silence as he removed his wings, storing them in his pockets. As he crossed the room to a nearby chest, he opened the chest, rummaging through the contents. He stopped near it and clattered to the ground. It hadn't shattered, but it had made a soft thud as it hit the hardwood floor. As he froze, glancing over to one of the invisibility detectors hidden in the room. It was on. Hello? Is anyone there? Impulse asked, almost hoping it was one of his friends planning to surprise him. He didn't hear anything as he got to his feet and walked over to the door that led to the kitchen. He noticed one of the empty wooden bowls had fallen off the counter, the contents spilling out as he noticed a piece of paper among the apples and melon slices. He glanced back towards the main room again, seeing that the window wasn't covered by blinds. He couldn't see Blake out there, but he was debating whether or not he should get him. He shrugged it off. It was probably nothing. The bowl probably just happened to fall over and spill its contents just as he got home. It wasn't a coincidence. The hermit nervously walked over to the mess and pushed aside the fruit as he picked up the piece of paper. It was folded as he looked up, scanning the area warily. There didn't seem to be any sign that anyone was invisible in the room. He walked over to where the bowl had been, noticing a little spring that as he tilted his head, did look a little rusted. Maybe it was just a coincidence after all. He shrugged and began to walk out of the room to show Blake what he'd found. seeing it would be better than just assuming things as the floor beneath creaked under the weight of his foot. He froze, looked down, hearing a soft groan from below, just as a loud crack filled his ears, as the floor from under him gave way as he screamed, plummeting into the darkness. He couldn't see anything for a moment as the light from above disappeared as he fell into the darkness. As he fell, the darkness seemed to consume him as the wind rushed past him. As he scrambled to grab his wings before he hit the ground below hard, he groaned in pain. The hermit managed to painfully sit up as he blinked, looking above him as he saw the small hole of light above. How long had the hole been here? Where was he now? He didn't have much time to think about that. What was happening as he felt someone grab him, as he yelled in surprise, struggling to free himself. We really should have put something here to cushion his fall, an unfamiliar voice huffed, as an uneasy feeling filled the hermit. He wasn't alone in here. That was for sure. What was going on? How long had these men been down here? How long had they been waiting for him? Was he the one they were waiting for? No matter. He survived the fall. He'll be good with that. The second voice stated firmly, We don't have much time. He? What are you talking about? Impulse demanded. The elbow hit him between the ribs as he gasped in pain. His eyes started adjusting to the darkness as he noticed a light down the hallway. It was dim, but it was light. The soldiers didn't say anything to him as the man holding him dragged him across the hall. Had Blake heard him scream? The crack of the floor? How long would the boy notice something was going on? Was that what the men meant by no time? Can anyone tell me what's going on? Impulse insisted, as they neared that room at the end of the hall. It wasn't a large room, about 10 meters by 10 meters. The walls were made of cobble. The ceiling still had a stone remaining as spruce plank flooring. I can definitely help you with that, Impulse, a familiar voice suggested, as the hermit's eyes snapped toward the sound. Chills crawled down the hermit's spine as he saw the man leaning against the back corner of the room, pushing himself up as he walked toward him. The man's face was enshrouded by a cloak, so Impulse could see the scar lining the man's face. The man's dark eyes gleamed with a sinister joy in seeing the hermit. How did you? Impulse managed to sputter as he felt himself being pushed to his knees as the man pulled something from out of its pocket. The hermit swallowed, recognizing what it was almost immediately. The others haven't told you. Gerald raised an eyebrow as he smiled, showing his teeth to the end. I guess that means that the plan worked. What plan? Impulse asked nervously as the man drew closer. The hermit struggling to try to get away, something, but the soldier was keeping him firmly put. It's actually quite simple. You see, Gerald said calmly, as he wrapped the headband around the hermit's forehead. Impulse heard the familiar click, followed by a faint humming as the machine began to vibrate. Mr. A hired some of your so-called friends to break me up. Wasn't as easy as it had been for RJ before, but Rose had beefed up the security. Rose had beefed up the security, but it wasn't hard to convince them that she'd asked me to have me moved to another location. What about RJ? Impulse pressed. We'll find him eventually, don't you worry. The man hushed the hermit, putting a finger to his lips. What matters right now is that you're here. I was hoping you'd show up. You know Blake will be down here in like 5 minutes, right? Impulse raised an eyebrow. A giant hole in my kitchen isn't very subtle. No, I wouldn't think so. The man shook his head with a chuckle. Good thing I only need you for 5 minutes then. What do you mean? Impulse asked warily as Gerald pulled something out of his pocket. It was a controller of some kind, with hermit tensed. I want to make sure this thing works for what I need it for, Gerald mused as he fiddled the dial. The hermit gasped, leaning forward as he felt pain pierce through him. You see, when Mr. A had one of his men check on Green's friends back at the Spruce Village, they were no longer there. They moved, Impulse said blandly. The fact itself didn't surprise him. Just the fact that they'd happened already. And where? The man frowned. Mr. A was quite disappointed to find that those pesky YouTubers outsmarted him. So he'd asked me to see if I could get Green to maybe talk. That won't work. Impulse narrowed his eyes. Let me finish. You hear that? I can hear birds through the window. The man held up his hand. I wanted to make sure this plan would go smoothly, so I thought I would check in with you, seeing as you managed to hold your own. Bradford. I'm not telling you anything, Impulse said firmly. Not even about where your friends are. Not just asking about kids, agreed. I'm sure you know. You won't find them, Impulse said simply. I don't know where they were taken to. The man only shook his head as he adjusted the controller again. Impulse gasped with pain, falling forward on his hands and knees, feeling like something was tearing through him as he tightened his fists, his humming growing louder and louder. He tried to calm himself, to remind himself it was all in his head, just like he practiced with Tango. I'm sure you know exactly where they are, Gerald pressed as he knelt next to the hermit, lifting his chin as the hermit met his dark eyes, the darkness within them more apparent in the dim light. Impulse could feel his hot tears falling down his cheeks as he fought the pain, trying to think of a happy memory. This was different. This felt different. It felt raw. It felt real. So real. I don't, Impulse insisted, his voice shaking as he collapsed to the ground, unable to hold himself up, as he cried out in pain again. He wanted so badly to make it stop, so badly for it to end. Did you know that this could go even higher than what I have it right now? I haven't even started with the new upgrades, Gerald said almost pleasantly. He leaned closer to the other and whispered, every moment of your agony proves to me that I will eventually break you. You won't break me, Impulse pressed, finally taking slower, deeper breaths, ignoring the pain as he managed himself with his friends and Victor. Jem, Pearl, Green, Tango, the kids, and the others. Everyone was there, laughing, playing games like tag and hide-and-seek, pulling pranks on each other. It was perfect. The pain faded away momentarily. There was no sign of danger, none of Mr. A's men, much less Gerald. He was happy. They all were. He blinked. He looked up at Gerald, who took his head curiously. How do you feel? Gerald asked, as the soldiers looked at one another nervously. Why does it matter to you? Impulse groaned as he tried to sit up as the man knocked him down again. The hermit hit his head on the hardwood floor. The pain came rushing back, full force, as he screamed. This brought a crooked smile to the man's face. Looks like to me that your little idea isn't a permanent solution. The man pointed out with amusement. Not telling you anything, the hermit stated defiantly, gasping in pain once more as the man adjusted the dial. Impulse started to see black dots appear in his vision as he blinked, wondering if he was just imagining them or if they were actually there. Keep doing this until you do, Gerald warned. You'll kill me first before I do, the hermit demanded, managing to look up at the man. You'll pass out first before I get to that point. The man laughed, though the triumph was short-lived, as one of the soldiers shouted in pain as he collapsed to the floor, an arrow to his back as the other soldier turned to intervene, as he hollered in surprise as someone tackled him to the ground before all went quiet. I would stop whatever you're doing right now, Gerald, Blank's voice mourned as the hermit gasped again. This time, not because of pain. Are you going to just stop me? Gerald asked curiously, getting to his feet as he held his controller in his hand. Nothing's stopping me from giving and using this. Even if you manage to try to stop me, I can easily give Impulse here a lethal voltage before you get a chance. Impulse took a slow, deep breath as he managed to sit up, still in agonizing pain as he tried to regain the image. Instead, he could only see Skiz's face, looking right at him, into his piercing blue eyes. He was saying something, but the hermit couldn't quite hear it. But whatever it was, it gave him enough strength for him to lunge at Gerald and tackle him to the hardwood floor as the controller flew from the man's hand. You could hear the man shout of surprise before he was shoved off him. He rolled onto his back as Skiz's face disappeared from his mind, replaced with Gerald, now holding something that glinted in the light. Impulse's eyes grew wide with fear just as Blake tackled the man. The dagger, too, flanked from his man's hand as Blake told Impulse to go. Hermit groaned as he sat up, seeing the controller across the room as he painstakingly crawled over to it, managing to grab for it as a foot landed on his landed on him square in the back as he gasped weakly, collapsing the rest of the way down. I don't think you'll be going anywhere, one of the soldiers said coldly. The hermit looked over his shoulder, seeing it was the one Blake hadn't shot down as the man pulled out a crossbow along with a rocket. Don't, Impulse warned faintly, scrambling to turn off the controller. The pain immediately disappeared, along with the humming noise. He didn't have time to celebrate, attempting to sidekick the man off him, who was still loading the crossbow as the impact sent the man flying to his right. The hermit managed to use the motion of his leg to roll over to his back. The rocket flew from the soldier's hand, which exploded between the two of them as Impulse flew backward, hitting the wall, groaning as he realized he was still bruised from the fall earlier. Impulse, are you okay? Blake called from across the hall as the hermit stumbled to his feet. Well, technically the room, but yeah, whatever. Seeing the man who tried to attack him was now unconscious, having suffered an explosion worse than he had. You could see Blake had pinned Gerald again, struggling to keep him down as Impulse pocketed the controller, removing the headband safely before grabbing its wings. Yeah, I'm okay, Impulse called back, limping toward the hallway as he heard a shout from behind as glass shattered. Hermit looked back just as Gerald lunged at him. Impulse screamed as he dodged the man, limping toward the exit as he grabbed his rockets, jumping as Gerald tried to grab for him, as he flew through the hall and up through the hole into the floor, barreling toward the glass window as he tried to land, managing to save himself from smashing through it. Impulse limped over to the front door. He opened it, feeling the afternoon breeze before he collapsed, exhaustion taking over as everything went dark. Chapter 5. Impulse groaned as he opened his eyes to the bright sunlight, seeing a shadow pass overhead through his blurry vision, and as his eyes snapped open. He was just outside his base, as panic filled him, everything rushing back as he tried to sit up, groaning as he fell back onto the surface, on the soft earth. Impulse? A familiar voice asked, as he heard someone land softly only a few feet away. He looked over to see Scar kneeling next to him. You okay? I think so, Impulse groaned again as he struggled to get up, falling back down, finding himself still exhausted from earlier. Was I out? I don't know. I just got here after Skizz called me. Scar frowned. Impulse could see Caleb and the other two escorts laying just behind his friend. Scar took out his medical kit. Skizz? Impulse asked, staring up at the blue sky. How was Skizz known what was going on? Had he felt the agonic pain his friend had been going through? And called for help. Impulse bit his bottom lip nervously as he turned his head to face Scar. Yeah, he said you were in trouble and I had to find you as fast as possible, Scar replied simply. Not sure why he would have called me, but he said he couldn't get there to help you in time. Impulse managed to smile, nodding as Scar took out a healing potion from the box as the hermit finally managed to sit up. He took a potion from his friend, consuming its contents as it stretched liquid to his dry throat. What happened? Caleb asked barely, finally stepping into the conversation. Where's Blake? He's still upstairs trying to keep Gerald away from me, Impulse managed, realizing a second later how absurd that sounded. Wait, Gerald? Scar, his eyes wide in surprise. How? You'll have to explain later, one of the class members interjected quickly. If that's true, you both shouldn't be here. What about Blake? Impulse asked, looking up at the man. I don't think you'll need to worry about me. Blake's voice trailed from the main room. Impulse whirled around, relieved to see the boy appear at the front door. Gerald slipped away from me through one of the secret tunnels down there while I wasn't looking. I guess he realized he had no chance of getting what he wanted once Impulse escaped. What did he want? Caleb asked, looking over at the two hermits nervously. Impulse looked down at the grassy bed he landed on, unsure if he should say anything or not. Finally, he managed to get out one word out in a whisper. Korean. He's good for Korean? Scar asked, mimicking his whisper, as the other hermit looked up and nodded. It'd probably be a good idea if we get these two somewhere safe, while we report what happened, Blake said confidently, as the other cause members nodded. Scar helped Impulse to his feet as the hermit tried to keep him steady. You don't look great, Impulse, Scar told him gently as he pulled out his rockets. I'll be fine in a few minutes. Impulse reassured him with a genuine smile. The pain was all in my head anyway. Well, clearly not all of it. Scar chuckled as he jumped into the air, holding his friend close as they glided through the sky. No, not all of it. But you took care of that part, Impulse agreed, looking down at the world below. The green leaves of the trees blending, showing the ocean of forest green. That's good to hear, Scott nodded as the two of them flew toward Scar's base. Impulse looked back to see the other escorts right behind them. As he met Blake's eye, he could see a mix of relief and concern in those eyes. He managed to smile at the hermit. Impulse returned it, knowing there was a lot to explain once they got to Scar's base. A few minutes passed as the group arrived at Scar's base. Scar carried his friend safely to the ground. Impulse let go of his friend as he stumbled for a moment, regaining his balance. I probably need to let the kids know I'm okay, Impulse pointed out. Oh, I think he knows, Scar chuckled. Especially if you two are linked, remember? Right, but I still want to hear from him. Impulse hesitated, looking over at the escorts. Blake was whispering something to Caleb, and the other boy nodded. Scar wrapped an arm around Impulse's shoulders and gently nudged him toward the front door. I'll make sure they give you a little space first before they go all out on you with questions. Scar winked before giggling. Impulse smiled appreciatively, thanking his friend as they entered the base. The other hermit led him to the main room as Impulse took a seat, taking off his wings reluctantly as he put them in his pocket, retrieving the communicator a second later. He looked up, spotting Scar walking out of the room, saying something to the others as they all walked down the hall. Impulse said nothing as he looked down, fiddling with the buttons until he got what he was looking for, and the device connected. Doubled up! Skid exclaimed immediately as a smile appeared on the hermit's face. What happened to you? Are you okay? I'm fine now, Impulse reassured him. A lot of that was in my head mostly. Shouldn't feel like it, Skid admitted simply. What did it feel like? Impulse asked, putting down his communicator next to him as he massaged his temples. Like you were in agonizing pain, Skid insisted, a sinking feeling that you were in serious danger. To be fair, that wasn't wrong. Impulse chuckled nervously. But you didn't feel that when I was testing it with Angle yesterday. No, Skid said quickly. Just today. That's interesting. Impulse frowned, putting his hands on his lap. What's interesting? What's on your mind, buddy? What's on your mind, Impulse? Skid pressed as the hermit leaned back against the armchair he was sitting in. No, you can't tease me like that. It's not easy to explain, Impulse admitted. But it's kind of like what I told you before, how I knew you were in trouble. But then I didn't know where you were. I didn't either. I just told Scar to find you. And he got lucky, Skid chuckled. Could have been anywhere, Impulse sighed. But he knew I'd be home because we've been told not to go anywhere yet. That's especially true now that Gerald's in the picture again. Wait, Skid said slowly. You're saying that Gerald somehow got out, found you in your base, and attacked you? Yeah, pretty much, Impulse confirmed, shaking his head. Sounds crazy. It is crazy. It makes no sense, Skid said matter-of-factly. After all, he was the one who found my base rather than Sophia's the first time. What? How? Impulse asked in alarm. Why didn't you tell me this? I want to scare you, Skid chuckled casually. You're good though, right? Gerald's not making you say this for whatever reason. Yeah, I'm safe. I'm with Scar, Blake, and Sky's crew. Impulse confirmed. The protectors are trying to figure out what to do with the news I just gave them. Wow, Skid said calmly. Well, that's good to know you're okay. I totally wasn't worried or anything. Yeah, Impulse laughed knowingly. Be careful he doesn't find you again, okay? He won't, Skid said confidently. This place is a lot newer than the other ones, which means fewer people know about it. Okay. Impulse smiled, picking up the device again. Looking up to see Scar standing in the kitchen doorway with Caleb and Blake peeking out from behind. Looks like I have visitors who want to talk to me. I'll have to chat with you later. Today? Skid pressed. Of course, Impulse agreed. That hasn't changed. Counting on it. You then, buddy. The communicator disconnected before he could say anything more. As the hermit watched the three of them walk into the room. Hopefully we weren't interrupting anything, Flick said cautiously. No, not at all. Just a couple of friends catching up. Impulse shrugged. He sat up straighter in the armchair. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Are you up for telling us for what happened down there? Before Blake intervened. Caleb pressed, crossing the room as he sat down in the chair next to Hermit. Mm-hmm. Impulse replied, slowly with a nod, hearing a chest open as he saw Scar taking some soup from out of one of the chests. I'm sure you're hungry, yes? Scar offered, as he held out the bowl to him. Impulse took it graciously and sipped the soup thoughtfully. It was still warm, fresh and smooth. It was just what he needed after the chaos that had happened earlier. He cleared his throat as he rolled back his shoulders, trying to be concise as he could in explaining everything that had happened. So, Gerald wanted to use you to see how far he could go, Caleb said after it was detailed to the group, so that he could use his knowledge on Korean, who doesn't even know where his friends are. Yep, but I told him it wouldn't work, Impulse shrugged, shaking his head. He's stubborn. That's why I want to make sure G doesn't go back to his base yet. He needs to stay with the girls for safety reasons until we can sort out Gerald. Understandable. Like nodded. I'll inform Messias about everything and make sure he's aware of your request. Thanks. Impulse said gratefully as he handed the empty bowl to Scar. Also, thanks for the soup. One of the best I've had. Scar laughed. Glad to hear it. I'll be sure to send the compliment off for the chef. Impulse chuckled as he returned before looking over at Caleb again. Is it okay if I stay here for a while, seeing as it's not safe in my base at the moment? That's probably a smart move, Caleb noted as he nodded. I'll talk with the other guys about it, but I'm sure Scar wouldn't mind the company. Of course not, Scar exclaimed with a grin. Want me to show you to a room? You probably need some rest. I could do with a quick nap, honestly. Impulse agreed as he got up, following his friend to the staircase. He glanced over his shoulder to see Blake taking out his communicator as Caleb disappeared back into the kitchen, probably to talk about the situation with the other two men. He was sure everything would be fine regarding his stay as he climbed the stairs behind Scar. Even though the pain had left him and the healing potion had dealt with the fall's consequences, he still felt exhausted. He needed some time to recover after what Gerald had put him through. The fact that he made it through the ordeal was proof that it was possible. Gerald wouldn't have the final say. He never did. Paul said anything to say about it. He'd make sure Green was safe. The hermit had made it his suggestion. He just hoped it'd be enough. Chapter 6. Oh, he just made it over an hour. Awesome. Awesome. We might have to split this one into 2 parts, which is absolutely fine. I didn't know how long we would be doing this, so yeah. I probably could do for another chapter. But I want to try to leave it on a cliffhanger so you guys come back for the next one. Impulse opened the door to the bedroom Scar had taken him to a few hours earlier. He wiped the sleepers from his eyes as he stifled a yawn, stepping out into the hallway as everything started to come back to him. He shook the images of Gerald looking down at him, tormenting him with his little gadget, trying to see how far he could push the hermit. Impulse shuddered as he remembered the man's smile, and the joy in his eyes when he managed to outsmart the hermit. At least he was guessing that was what Gerald was thinking when he snapped him out of the image Impulse was imagining. Impulse reached into his pocket and pulled out the headband he stashed away just before escaping, frowning as he looked down at it. It did look similar to one he and Tango had been using to test the chip on, but looked more polished. An upgrade from the last one. Just how dangerous could this thing be? How far was it able to go? Could it cause more irreparable damage than the previous one? He just followed as he looked up at the empty hallway, hearing a distant voice downstairs. He went over to another room, pushed open the door, finding a table in the center of the room, with a few redstone components lying around. There were a few chests and shulker boxes scattered around the room. He didn't pay much attention to them as he walked over to the table and placed the headband down, laying it flat so he could take a closer look at it. Impulse took out the controller he also managed to save as he looked between it and the headband. If only he had one of Tango's gadgets that he could test it on. Tango was probably busy right now as it was. He didn't want to bother him, and wasn't sure if he should ask one of the escorts to get it from his friend's base with him. He could probably figure out what this thing was capable of, at least. Impulse took out his redstone box, setting the controller down on the table gently. He opened his box, rummaging through it in the hopes of finding something. He pulled out some redstone and a set of pliers, a little smaller than shears, as he began picking up the machine. It was sealed shut, failing to even budge at its attempt. He put the tool away after a little bit of prodding. He picked it up the headband again, reclasping its two ends together before putting it back down on the table. He retrieved the controller for a moment to examine the buttons and dial on the device just as he heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Not just one pair of footsteps either. "Hello?" Impulse called out, pausing what he was doing. Looked over his shoulder as the footsteps approached, and someone appeared in the door. "Mind if we come in?" Scar offered, as he stepped aside, gesturing toward the visitor. "Sure, why not? I was just getting started, actually," Impulse said cheerfully before adding, "I thought you were busy, Tango." "That's finished. What do you need to do already?" Tango shrugged. "As soon as I heard what happened, I had to check on you." He actually encouraged it. "Yeah." Impulse nodded with a weak smile as he turned on the controller. Headband hummed to life at the table. "I managed to snatch this one from Gerald while I was trying to escape." "That was a big mistake on his part," Tango chuckled as he entered the room, crossing the floor as he stood next to his friend. "Anything you need from me?" Did you bring one of those chips with you that we were working on?" Impulse asked curiously, tilting his head in his friend's direction. "These things have a few new upgrades I want to test." "Like what?" Tango looked over his shoulder. He looked at the headband on the table. There doesn't seem to be an easy placement for the chip for this one. "You could make it magnetic, perhaps?" Scar offered, joining the conversation as he leaned against the door frame casually. "That would work," Impulse nodded at Tango, which on his redstone box, rummaging through it. "I have a couple spare you could use. Not the one you fixed for me, so they still have a few bugs and glitches." He offered as he grabbed one from the box. Impulse turned off the headband, unsure if it would cause any effect if he accidentally touched it with his bare hands. Probably would, as all it needed was skin contact. "I can patch those up easily." Impulse shrugged off as he took the chip from him, fiddling with it until he set it up properly. "There, that should do it." "Great!" Tango grinned as he as he observed Impulse rummaging through his shulker box, as he grabbed some tiny metallic objects, putting them on the chip in their proper place before sticking it onto the headband. He attempted to jiggle it a little bit. I think it was strong enough to stay put. "Do you want me to help you test it?" Scar offered, taking a step into the room as he pushed himself away from the doorframe. "I'm not sure," Impulse hesitated. "This thing hasn't been properly tested on, and it's potentially dangerous, too. Unlike the other one, we don't know what this thing is capable of. I want to try without first." Scar nodded as Impulse clipped the headband together, placing it on the table. He turned on the controller as the device hummed to life. The hermit took a step back as he fiddled with the dial, hearing the faint humming grow louder and even from where he was standing. Was it able to do the images? Tango observed from behind his friend. Not at the stage Gerald had it, but maybe he didn't have that enabled for me. Impulse shrugged. "All they do is torment you with your worst fears. It's more of a torture weapon. I was just a test subject." "So you felt was the pain, not the images, right?" Scar asked. "Yeah." Impulse nodded, noticing there were the little symbols around the dial. If someone was wearing it now, they'd be at the stage where images would start to appear. "That's never even halfway," Tango noted as he went over to the headband, looking back at the turban. "Should I test the chip?" "It shouldn't hurt you if you just press the chip." "Yeah," Impulse warned. "Be careful." I will. Tango smiled as he put a finger on the chip, pressing the humming as the humming softened. Doesn't seem to be strong enough to stop it completely, Impulse noted. Tango removed his finger as he adjusted the dial. This thing can go at least double the last one. Yikes! Tango's eyes widened. That's not good. It's not, Impulse agreed, seeing the bright red light now next to the button that had a lightning bolt symbol embroidered on it, top of it. The voltage is also set to incredibly high right now. Should I test it? The hermit scrambled back as he nodded. All clear. Impulse pressed the button as the headband sparked to life. A flash of blue, barely visible through the sheet of tinted glass, as the green chip began to glow before it died down. Is that a good sign? Scar asked as he crossed the room as well, no doubt wanting to get a better look at what the two redstoners were up to. It's better than being completely fried, Tango mused as he leaned closer to have a better look. Yep, it's still working, even at a high voltage. I was half capacity, Impulse reported, shaking his head. Just need to beef it up a little more and compare whatever this thing's capable of, and we're good. Impulse turned off the controller as the headband's humming died down, putting down the device on the table. He carefully put a finger to the top of the chip. It was a little warm as he pressed it, hearing the headband click as a release. Whoa, that's cool, Sky gasped. I was wide with excitement. Something new I figured out how to do, Impulse shrugged. If you press the top level of the chip just right, it'll remove it without shocking you, regardless if it's on or not. Good to know. Tango nodded as Impulse moved the chip and started it in his pocket. What are you doing? We need to keep at least one of these with us at all times, Impulse pointed out, turning his face to his friend. Gerald might have more of those things. Can you replicate it? Tango offered softly. I might be able to give you what you need if you want to help with that, seeing that it is your design. Impulse smiled, pulling out a piece of paper and a quill, jotting down what he did and how before handing it to his friend. Think that'll work? I can definitely work with this. Thanks, Impulse. Tango agreed as he put the piece of paper away before grabbing his headband, the headband and controller. Now I have a new toy to play around with and figure out. Thanks for dropping by, Impulse replied, going over to give his friend a hug. Just wanted to make sure you were okay. Tango returned and hid his embrace. It's not great news knowing your friend got attacked by an escaped felon, you know. Yeah, Impulse laughed nervously, pulling away as Tango went over to the door. Be careful on your way out, though. I will, don't worry. Tango reassured him as he passed Scar, arriving at the door as he put his hand on the door frame. I've got a lot of work yet to do to make sure this thing is perfect. Then I'll probably have Rose take it off my hands and let her deal with it as she pleases. There, Impulse nodded. I'll keep this one just in case, especially if Gerald tries to go after Grant, if you can find him. Do you think he will? Scar replied warily as he looked between the two of the hermits. Sure hope not, but it's good to be prepared. Tango stated calmly before giving the two of them a wave. Tyler's waiting for me downstairs. I'll see you guys again soon. The hermits bid each other farewell as Tango went into the hallway, disappearing. Scar turned, meeting his eyes, Impulse with a small smile. Does it work with good memories stick? Scar asked calmly. Yeah, if you think of something positive or imagine anything. It doesn't have to be a memory. It works, Impulse replied to nod. Even if you manage to use that images against the device, it should work. Okay, Scar replied as he stepped out of the hallway. I was curious. It's important to know, Impulse agreed, beginning to head out of the room, since he could go after having one, if he wanted to. It's just Korean. What will he do if he finds out that Korean doesn't have what he's looking for? Scar's eyes grew wide as the question dawned on him. Nothing good, Impulse shook his head. He could use him to try to lure the others out of hiding, or just finish him off. Scar shuddered as the two of them walked out of the workshop, Impulse closing the door behind them. Let's hope that doesn't happen. I agree, Impulse smiled sadly. We're doing what we can right now. Hopefully, we'll be ready if he chooses to strike. Scar smiled, nodding as Impulse watched as he gave him a wave, ending the conversation as the two of them parted ways. Not for long, he was sure, but the hermit needed some time to think, especially since he didn't know where Gerald was or what he might be planning to do. For all Impulse knew, the man already knew where Grant was. Gerald couldn't know, though. Not yet, at least. Not unless one of the soldiers was able to catch wind of this information. Even so, it wouldn't be easy for Gerald to just sneak inside again, especially now that the secret tunnels were far better than before. He made sure of it himself, adding invisibility detectors and an alarm system. Wasn't the only way in, no, but if it slowed the men down, then Impulse considered it a good thing. One more. That'll be perfect then. Chapter 7! I don't know how many chapters there are. I forgot how many chapters there were. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I can keep going more than that. Absolutely fine. Yep. The ability to do it on Thursday. Yeah. A couple of days had passed since Impulse had arrived at Scar's base for refuge. Not much had happened since in that time. Mr. A, Gerald, and their group having gone quiet. There was no sign of activity going on about what those men were doing. And Impulse wasn't sure how to think about that as he tinkered with the chip he had in his pocket. He'd managed to strengthen its capacity a little bit as he flipped it over, looking at the little magnetic beads at the bottom, which would attach that had been whenever they were closed. Everything seemed to be working as intended, which was reassuring as he pocketed it. He examined the empty workshop, apart from the stray barrels, shoulders, and chests in the corner. The room didn't seem to have any sign of life. The blinds were pulled back from the window as the afternoon light poured in. Impulse walked over to the window, looking out just as he saw one of Scar's backup crew members walking just under the window. If the man looked up, he would see him, but he didn't. He kept walking by, eyeing the perimeter of the base. The hermit looked out into the tree line, seeing a hint of movement in the bush. Just a chicken poked its little head out of the bush, moving its mouth, or beak, its beak, as it looked around. The chicken was alone, probably looking for its group. The hermit smiled. Impulse walked away from the window, crossing the room as he opened the door, looking out into the hallway. He couldn't hear any muffled voices from anywhere. Not in another room, downstairs, not even with the creaking of a floorboard. He eyed the invisibility detector down the hall as he approached it, noting that it was still functioning as intended, as a soft breeze brushed against his ankles as he drew near to it. If there was someone invisible here, he'd be able to see them. There wasn't, though. He hadn't heard anything about what Gerald might be doing. Was he still looking for Gran? How close was he? Or was he trying to focus on another target? The questions dissipated away momentarily as he heard a meow from down the hall, looking back to see Jelly rolling playfully on the floor with something between her paws as she swatted it. It didn't look to be one of her toys. In fact, it was a piece of paper. What do you have there? Impulse asked her as he crossed the hallway, as her eyes looked up at him. Having stopped what she was doing, the hermit bent down, picking up the piece of paper as the cat meowed, getting to her feet as she trotted into another room, her tail swishing side to side. Impulse chuckled as he looked down at the paper. It was crumpled, torn a little from what Jelly had done to it, but as he pulled it out more, he could see something quite familiar, and unease filled him. Impulse went down the hallway, looking out into each room as he went down to see if anyone was inside. He was alone up here, apart from Jelly. He determined that he made it to the stairs, spotting someone in the main room, as their shadow just about disappeared. Caleb? Impulse called, as he began walking down the stairs, seeing a head peek around the corner as the young boy heard him. What is it? Caleb asked curiously, his eyes looking down at what the Impulse was holding in his hand. The hermit swallowed. He found Jelly playing with this. Impulse frowned as he crossed the rest of the hall to show the way. Caleb's eyes began growing wide as he recognized what the hermit was showing. Do you know where she got it from? Caleb asked softly. Impulse shrugged. She was playing with it in the hallway. I don't know where it could have been or who put it there. Surely we would have noticed something, right? Caleb paused as he looked up at the stairs. Did you see anyone up there with you? Scar? I thought Scar was you down here. Impulse replied. A chill ran down his spine. I was in the workshop all morning, working on the chip so it'd be ready for when we'd need it. I didn't hear anything. Maybe we should take a look upstairs first, Caleb said slowly as he glanced out the window. So I probably should let Blake or maybe Matthias know this. Once we know Scar is safe, Impulse said firmly. The boy nodded. Right, come on, stay behind me. Impulse said nothing, following the boy upstairs once more, hearing each step of the stair, loud against the silence. Surely if something was going on, they'd hear it, right? He hadn't heard anything at all morning. He remembered seeing Scar last night when he'd gone into the kitchen to get Jelly some food. He'd noticed Scar to have gone downstairs at least once, seeing Jelly was pestering anyone to feed her. Well, Caleb had done it for him. The two of them made it to the top of the stairs as Impulse began walking down the hallway, looking into the first room warily. You should check Scar's room first, make sure he didn't sleep in or anything. Fair, Caleb agreed, as he went ahead. Finding Scar's room, he pushed open the door. The boy frowned as he looked inside. Impulse caught up to him as he looked over his shoulder. The room was empty, but he scanned his eyes as he spotted something. That painting looks a little crooked, Impulse pointed out in the far wall adjacent from the window. The blinds obscured some of the sunlight as Caleb walked inside first. Do you think something might be behind it? Caleb wondered as he approached, taking off the painting as he lowered it to the hardwood floor. Sure enough, on the other side of the painting was a door that led down with a ladder. When was this put in? Probably somewhat recently, seeing how it's not well decorated, Impulse replied. Whatever happened, they seem to have been in quite a hurry. Maybe we should stay up here. Maybe you should stay up here just in case, Caleb cautioned. If I'm not back in 5 minutes, find Blake and tell him everything. You shouldn't go down there alone, especially if there's a chance there's more than one guy down there, Impulse warned. Or Gerald. Do you think he'd be down there? And Caleb looked down the hole. Impulse looked over the boy's shoulder, seeing a little light bleeding into the small hole. It was pretty far down, far enough where they wouldn't necessarily hear anything. If he's looking for Grant, maybe. Impulse looked toward the door warily, leaning out into the hall. They must have been how they got in and out without him knowing. Great, the boy groaned, shaking his head as he began to descend the ladder. Stay up here, I mean it. I still think you shouldn't go down there alone, Impulse pressed. Especially if there's more of those guys. You need someone to be able to get him out of there fast. Caleb hesitated before nodding reluctantly. Okay, but be careful. The hermit nodded as he followed the boy down the ladder, feeling the wooden rungs as he climbed down, jumping to the cobblestone floor as he looked down a narrow hallway. A few meters away was another room. Impulse followed Caleb into the entrance, peeking in, his eyes widened. I'm not letting you go until you tell us what we need to know, an unfamiliar voice demanded, as the hermit heard a pained whimper from across the room. A tall, lean man stood in front of another figure who was lying on his side as the man loomed over the figure. Scar, Impulse whispered, seeing tears falling down his friend's face, seeing the familiar black headband strapped securely onto the hermit's forehead. You can't do whatever you want to me, Scar insisted through gasped pain. I'm not telling you or your friends where he is. We're about to get a pop-up. Maybe. I don't know. Oh, I think you will. The man taunted as Impulse watched Caleb step into the room as the hermit waited. Otherwise, Gerald will send you right to Mr. A and he'll make you talk. Yeah, that worked well last time. Scar managed with a chuckle, groaning in pain again as the man readjusted the controller in his hand. I have no idea what this thing is capable of. The man sneered just as Caleb made his move, lunging at the man as he grabbed him in a chokehold, flinging him away from the hermit. As the controller went flying from the man's hand, Impulse took his chance, sprinting across the room as he pulled out the chip from his pocket. Impulse, Scar said hoarsely, a smile appearing on his face. Hang in there, Impulse said quickly, as he attached the device to the headband, pressing the button as he looked over at his friend's pale face. How did that do? Much better than it would have even 5 minutes ago. The hermit chuckled, groaning in pain as Impulse pressed the chip just right as he heard it click, handbed falling harmlessly to the floor. He removed the chip, pocketing it, helping Scar to his feet as his friend stumbled. There, I should take care of him, Caleb said simply, brushing his hands off as he looked down at the man on the floor, unconscious, his wrists bound together. The boy looked back at the two of them and smiled. Looks like you took care of that. Yeah, Impulse agreed, half carrying Scar toward the tunnel, looking around the room warily. Gerald wasn't here? No, he had other matters to attend to. Scar admitted, a smile on his face, having disappeared as they arrived at the ladder. Like what? Impulse asked. The guy never said. Scar sighed, shaking his head. We need to get in touch with G before he does something stupid. I'll take care of that. Impulse, you get Scar upstairs and find another room while we come up with a game plan. Here. This place is definitely full of secrets that we aren't aware of. Are you sure it'll be safe? Impulse asked, warily. Gerald knows where Scar is, and if he thinks he can use him to lure Screen out, he will. Then let's make sure that doesn't happen, Caleb said firmly, as Impulse let Scar go. The hermit slowly beginning to climb the ladder. I'll do my best, Impulse nodded, following Scar closely behind, ready to catch him if he fell. Luckily, the hermit managed to pull himself out as he sat up on the hardwood floor, just as a shadow flew past the window, for someone landed on the windowsill. Scar managed a nervous giggle as Impulse rushed to the window and opened it. Green jumped into the room, immediately spotting Scar struggling to stand as he went for him. Scar, what happened? Are you okay? Green asked quickly as Impulse closed and locked the window, perplexed, but decided it was better not to ask any questions at the moment. You didn't call in last night or this morning. Jim told me you guys are okay, so I wasn't worried about it until... I'm okay. See? Impulse and Caleb had it all under control. The hermit said nonchalantly. Green embraced him tightly. She's glad no one tried to intercept you. Why would they want to intercept me? Green asked quickly. Pull it away. Gerald might have been trying to use your connection with Scar to lure you out, Impulse explained. Scar told Caleb to warn you, but you got here first. Green nodded his head. A sheepish smile on his face. Yeah, at least I didn't get intercepted. Maybe that's because it's never my intention in Maybe that's because that was never my intention in the first place. Hi. A cold, familiar voice replied as Impulse looked back, startled to see Gerald standing in the doorframe, a cold glint in his eyes. How did you get in here? Impulse demanded as he extended his sword, stepping forward, just in case. Did you really think that was the only secret in this base? Gerald raised an eyebrow. We created 2 entrances to ensure nothing went wrong. I'm not telling you anything, Korean said defiantly, helping Scar to his feet as the hermit leaned against his friend. His eyes had begun to grow heavy from exhaustion as Impulse looked from his friends to Gerald warily. He couldn't risk sending a distress signal for help with the man so close. Oh, I think you will. But I think you will. Gerald said calmly as he pulled something out of his pocket. It looked to be some sort of potion. Run! Impulse demanded as he leaped in front of Green and Scar. The other 2 hermits ran for the window. Impulse looked back as the man chuckled, throwing the potion toward the hermits. Impulse managed to block it as it smashed at his feet, gasping in surprise. Strange aroma filled his nostrils. Impulse, come on! Green insisted as he felt a cool breeze behind him. Get out of here, Impulse warned, feeling exhaustion starting to take hold as he lunged at Gerald, knocking him to the floor, his whole world spinning until it spiraled into darkness. Last thing he saw was Gerald's face as the man tossed him aside, hearing his friends scream, followed by a rocket that too followed silence. There was no pain. There was no fear. Just silence. Whoa. I mean, I can continue. Do I continue? It's only been like almost 90 minutes now. So, I don't know. I think I should stop here. Yeah. I think this will be the end of this one. I will do the next part in the next one. I was thinking that was what I was gonna do. We're just about halfway. So, that's perfect. I mean, we get another 90 minutes. Or less, depending on how long the chapters are. And how much we talk in between. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. This was, I guess, part 1 of part 1, you could say. I don't know. But yeah. I didn't necessarily expect to get all 4 videos done on a playlist. It probably was going to be 5 or more. We'll see. It just depends on how I'm feeling and how far I get to and all that stuff. And plus I want to have my voice, preferably, for my exams. So, yeah. Let's not push it today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one, whatever that might be. Oh, and also, yeah, things are gonna be happening.